Hi, I'm Tristan from Infinity Group, and we're here today to talk about building a business case for digital transformation, and I'm joined by my colleague Emma.
Hello, I'm Emma Wars. I lead the wonderful business applications sales team here at Infinity Group.
Okay, and we're going to talk about building a business case, and I guess starting with why you do it and what situations companies are in and where they're at in their kind of journey and why you need to do that, and then we'll move into the how. So how do you actually execute the process, what's involved, who needs to be involved, all that good stuff. So
so I guess we start with a bit of context around this. So I work in the business applications space here at Infinity, and when we're talking to customers about projects, these are projects that can take a lot of time. Often we're speaking to customers early in a journey. They might have a specific pain point they want to address. There might be a driver such as they've acquired some more businesses, which is quite common. But generally it's quite a long process, and a pivotal part of that is actually building a business case, because organisations don't tend to, they have an operational budget for things like IT, hardware, new starters joining, things breaking, stuff like that. But when it comes to implementing business applications, actually that's a big capex expenditure, that has to be approved, and need to be able to demonstrate the value that will bring to the business. I guess some customers we work with have already been through that process themselves, but many of them, and an increasing amount of them, are coming to us earlier in the process, I'd say, where they've got a specific driver for it. And I think there's a number of different scenarios that it might be worth talking through.
Yeah, and like you said, often they're bigger projects than just one department as well. So each department might have a budget, but a transformation that straddles multiple departments, you need a business case that covers the whole business. So you're dealing with multiple teams, and you need to take a proposition to the board quite often. So we're helping customers get to that point where they've got something tangible in a business case that they can then go and present to get budget and approval to invest a lot of time and resource and money in projects like this. So yeah, like you say, different customers are in different positions. Quite often it's acquisitive businesses, so maybe they're PE backed, so they've acquired lots of different businesses and lots of different IT setups and estates and things that need consolidation. I don't know, what are some other examples?
Yeah, I think sometimes, you might be in a marketplace that's quite crowded, and, how can we differentiate ourselves when, we're all selling the same thing, and how can we use technology to actually create a competitive advantage? I think one of the more exciting, scenarios in this thing, and they want to see how they can innovate. So I think that's increasingly becoming a bigger driver.
I think as well, on the less interesting side, you've got businesses that have grown organically over a long time and have got lots of old systems and maybe lots of on-premise systems, and they're busy growing and doing their day-to-day thing, so don't often have a chance to kind of stop and rethink what they're doing and how they're doing it. Like you say, that might involve changing the technology, but also changing the proposition, changing the operating model, and then thinking about how the business actually works.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point as well, because having been in working in technology, I think for about 15 years now, I remember when I was right at the beginning of selling business applications, the narrative was always about why you should migrate to the cloud. And I think with the pandemic, that really sped that process up. Anyone who was on a legacy system, weren't going to survive unless they could get their teams working remotely. So I think we've kind of got past that conversation, haven't we?
Yeah.
Why should you move to the cloud? But it's now, how can you make the most of the cloud? I think there's a lot of organisations out there that are digital natives. They're younger companies. They've got less legacy systems that are kind of binding them down. They can be much more agile to market opportunities. Whereas those organisations that have got all this legacy stuff that they kind of have to work around every time they want to change something is a challenge. I think people are recognising that now as well, and can be a big driver.
Yeah, I think one of the other scenarios you see as well is quite often an individual department or team within an organisation will have a need. So I don't know, you want to sell more, so we want to get a new CRM, but actually we need to help them kind of take a step back and look more widely at, sales might be down because there's competition out there, or your proposition hasn't moved with the times, those kinds of things. So we don't want to go straight down into the technology and kind of gathering requirements for whatever that might be. Actually, we need to take a step back and look at the big picture, look at the competition, look at the strategy, and align the whole kind of business case and plan around that, rather than just saying, right, there's a need over here that's siloed, we're going to go and put something in or fix something there. Actually, you're ignoring the big picture there.
It reminded me actually of one of the clients we work with, who they were a family-owned business. They'd grown organically, had lots of different departments. So I don't know how much I can give away about the organisation, but they were building houses, they were sourcing land, they had multiple different revenue streams and lots of departments within the organisation. And originally each of those departments had been empowered to get whatever systems they needed to do their job. But actually what it was creating for the management team is, well, how do we get visibility of how the company's doing? Every time we do our monthly reports, it's taking multiple people, multiple senior people as well, a lot of time to extract that information, and by the time we get it, we're actually looking in the rear view mirror thinking, oh, okay, well, we weren't so profitable here on this house build, whereas they wanted to get to a point where they could see the profitability as they go along and actually change their course if they needed to be able to get that visibility. So I think there's quite a few. So you've kind of got scenarios like that, and then we're working with a lot of PE backed firms, as you say, where actually they're acquiring businesses that all have different IT application landscapes within there. They've got different legacy technologies, and again they need to be able to consolidate everything to get a view of the wider business. And
I guess often those PE-backed companies, but others as well, there's a real driver to say, right, we want to grow revenue, profit, EBITDA, whatever, but we don't want to grow the headcount proportionately. So how can we be efficient? How can we use technology to grow the business without adding people all the time? And I think when we get to the how bit, we'll talk about some of the stuff you mentioned there. How do you quantify some of that stuff? So if you've got lots of senior people working weeks at a time putting reports together that only really tell you what's already happened, how do you shift away from that? And there's lots of different ways to approach that, obviously, but quantifying the problem in the first place is an important thing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then I think the key part of the business case, yes, it's quantifying the value of the technology, but quite often people just don't know where to start. So it's kind of saying, well, where should we start first? Where's the biggest impact going to be to the business? But also, what are the dependencies on getting this piece of work done? Because quite often there's a lot of preparation work that needs to be done. A lot of legacy businesses have got a lot of data that they need to make sense of before they're even in a position that they can start implementing some of those new technologies as well. And I guess it's really about giving them that roadmap of how they get to the end goal. But just where do we start and how do we start?
Yeah, and how do you deliver value early as well? So it might be a multi-year program, but you don't want to wait till the end till you see any benefit from that. So part of the work is how can we deliver value early? Start with the high impact stuff and things that are maybe simpler to do, so that actually throughout the process we're delivering value as well. And I guess combined with that as well is the change management piece. So it's as much about the people and the kind of strategy of the organisation as it is about the technology. So we start well away from the technology and think about where we're trying to get to. How do we get people on board with that? How are they going to buy into new systems and actually use them? Because if we go and put a load of cool new technology in and no one uses it, then we haven't achieved anything.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of fit if it's not addressed properly. Obviously, you can have the best technology in the world, it can make you a cup of tea, do everything for you, but actually if those people aren't brought on board from the beginning and they feel like it's being imposed on them rather than there to help empower them to do their jobs better, then you're not going to realise the value, because ultimately you want people to use it at the end of the day. That's how you get the value from it.
Yeah, and I guess it's the same if you frame the conversation around we're going to use technology to get rid of these jobs.
Yeah.
And that, that's the approach. Again, you're not going to get buy-in in that. What I would say is we're going to use technology to free up your time to do the high-value stuff and the bit of your job that you enjoy, and empower you to make more of a difference rather than just do admin or reporting and those kinds of things. So they're all important kind of strands in that change conversation, I think.
Yeah. And I think also, it's very hard to know what you need from technology without understanding what it could do for you. I suppose. Because if you're used to the systems, we work with a lot of companies that have built all of their operations around the capabilities of the technology. But I think it's really important to have that view of actually what it can do. We call it the art of possible. How AI can empower you, what all these tools can do, kind of out of the box, to kind of then really frame. When we're looking at what the opportunities are for them to help them, they've kind of got a context, I guess, to think, right, I can be really creative here. Anything I want to do, it can be achieved. So let's not be constrained by what we've known before.
Yeah, and that comes with the kind of platform approach, I guess. So before, like you say, people were just building what they needed, and then you get into a cycle of aligning to what's been built and building a bit more, changing a bit here. Whereas with a platform approach, you've got effectively a massive toolbox of clever, cool tools, so you can actually think, this is what I want to achieve. I'll go and find the right bit of the platform to do that, and you're 80% of the way there, and then you're just customizing it to fit exactly what you need. So by starting with a platform first, you can accelerate that process, be much more agile, because again, we want to deliver value quickly, but in a controlled way on a robust platform that we don't have to worry about what's sitting underneath. We can just focus on solving the problems and move the business forward.
And it is really a cultural shift as well, isn't it? Because I remember back in the day, so I used to work in-house. I used to get involved in some transformation programs. It was within a FTSE 100 company. It had lots of custom built platforms, and to do any changes or implement a new piece of functionality, we would spend sometimes a year just scoping out what we needed and then going through the build phase. But nowadays, getting the value, as you say, is through that incremental change, and that is a mindset. Our business is evolving, the technology is evolving, and just making sure that the two are aligning. And I think one of the great things as well, Microsoft, we're a pure play Microsoft partner, and just to see, in the last 15 years, how much that technology's come on. CRM is the meaning of CRM has been redefined, hasn't it, in terms of all the different modules now that you can get, depending what type of organisation you are. You've got things like field service, project operations, like that. And I think part of it is keeping abreast of what's coming, what innovations are coming out in the technology, and making sure you're regularly reviewing those to think, well, what kind of advantage can this bring to our organisation as well?
Yeah. And I think a big part of the business case conversations that we're having now are, how can I get onto a platform that's going to grow with me and get value going forward into the future as well. So, if you're on an evergreen platform, there's major updates coming out all the time with new features. You need to be in a position where you can utilise that. Like you say, you don't want to go through a kind of glacial change management governance process every time something new comes out. You want to get to the point where, if you want it, you can have it and adopt it quickly, and move on. So you're getting onto that path where you can stay up to date and then get ahead by being on a platform that's constantly updated. There's a load of investment in new technology and things, so it's not having to start from scratch every time to get that piece of functionality. So lots of people we're speaking to now, it's about, there's a license cost there, but what does that actually get me today, plus looking into the future as well. So that's a big lever in the business case. I think, if I tried to build that stuff as fast as it's being delivered by Microsoft, you just never keep up. So we're factoring those things into the kind of return on investment calculations and cost of ownership and that kind of thing.
And I think there's definitely an education piece around that as well, the whole evergreen technology, because there's a lot of people along in the tooth and have been through several transformations previously, where they've had to cough up a lot of this capex to implement this technology, but it's actually to say, right, well, actually, let's get this in, and then you're not going to have to go through that again. Really, if you get it right and the foundations right, then it is, it's almost an operation. Factor it into your operational cost, the gradual evolution of that platform.
Yeah, and I guess the old mindset was I've got to spend a load of money here and have a big capex, and therefore the longer I keep it as it is, the more I've got out of that investment. Whereas you got to change that mindset and say actually it becomes an operational expense, and you get value from it forever.
And I do wonder if actually we've been talking about digital transformation for years and years and years, and I just wonder whether actually maybe her problem is the name we're calling it, because it sounds like it's a destination, but actually evolution is continuous, isn't it? There isn't an end date. It's how you continually adapt.
Useful to kind of set some context, I guess, and talk about why we kind of start this process and what kind of customers we're looking to help and where they're at in that journey. So probably worth talking and spending a bit of time on how we then go about executing that process. Where do we start? Who do we talk to? What kind of outputs are we pulling together? What topics are we covering? Because there's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of different teams and people to get involved. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I think the first place to start is actually away from the technology, and it's to start by thinking about, look, what is my organisation's 5-year strategy? What's our vision for the business? Because we really need to kind of pin down, we call it the North Star vision. It's very Americanized, that term, but what is the guiding principle that we're looking to address here with this project? And I think it's much about the change management piece and it being something that the whole organisation can get behind, as well as it is just kind of defining what they're doing.
Okay, so it's been useful to think about the kinds of scenarios where we need to build a business case and where different customers are at and some of the different drivers behind it. So let's start to think about how we actually do that. How do we go through that process? Who do we need to speak to? What kind of stages do we go through? Because there's a lot of information to uncover and a lot of kind of layers to building a good business case. So where would we start?
Yeah, so look, I think you've got to start at the top down. Get your senior stakeholders involved. So typically we start off with a workshop, really to define what the vision is for the organisation. That's away from the technology. Where are you trying to get in the next 3 to 5 years, and what are the opportunities? In terms of the marketplace, where are the opportunities there that technology could help you with? Are there any key themes within your business? So often everyone wants to be more profitable, but there's operational improvements they can make. You've got levers such as how can we make more money. How can we de-risk sometimes is a key thing as well for some of the clients we speak to. And I think it's really kind of mapping that out.
Yeah, and in terms of that big picture strategy, I guess we work with lots of different customers, and some of them it's really well defined. I want to get there in 5 years, and that's the North Star or whatever you want to call it. And in that case, it's about how do we support that journey. And then with some, we're actually defining what that looks like. So it's been through a period of rapid growth or acquisitions or whatever, and actually it's a bit of a reset to say what is the strategy. And like you say, it's away from technology. It's what does the business want to achieve? What more do you want to do for your customers? What new types of customers do you want to get? And how are you going to cross-sell, upsell, all of that stuff? So, starting with that kind of board executive level vision and then working your way down is the place to start.
Yeah, and I think from a change management perspective as well, having that vision well defined up front is something that you can then try and get the rest of the organisation behind as well. Yeah,
and the simpler it is, the easier that is to do, right? So we don't want to have a 100-page strategy document. You want to have a couple of slides that says this is what we do, this is why we do it, and this is where we want to get to, and then we can use that to kind of drive everything that follows.
Yeah, I think one of my favourites actually was we're working with a client who does commercial laundry, and they said we want to be a tech company that does laundry. Simple. Simple.
And then I guess the next kind of layer to that, once we've got that vision established and we know what we're working towards, is then looking at what factors might influence that. So is it a competitive market? In which case, how are we going to differentiate ourselves? What different things can we do? Are there particular external factors that are going to affect that, whether that's economic, environmental, whatever it might be? It's really important for us to understand what those things are, because they're all potentially going to have an impact on the roadmap, impact on the business case. So we need to think about those things, and then we need to think about the perspectives of other people within the business as well.
So, I think obviously you've got your people, the staff, obviously they're the coal face. They'll understand on the ground kind of what particular pains are, where there's opportunities. But I think also the customer view on it is very important as well, and understanding how the experience can be improved from their perspective. There's a lot of customers we work with where actually the customer experience has actually been defined by their internal processes and the systems they're using, rather than aligned to actually what's going to improve that experience as well. So I think it's important to really combine those two lenses to really understand the opportunities you've got in front of you.
Yeah, it's another opportunity to take a step back as well, isn't it? Because like you say, you're doing what you do, serving your customers day in, day out, and you don't think about actually how could I completely rethink this and do it better. So we like to step through that customer journey or customer journeys, and identify where there's challenges, but also where there's opportunities, and where we could transform it all together. And it's interesting to do that, and it's surprising how many people don't do it as often as they should with their customers. So don't go out and talk to them and ask them, how was your experience? Which bits were good? Which bits were bad? So again, doing something like this is an opportunity to do that. And then if you do that with the kind of internal journey as well for staff, you get some really interesting answers out of that. So you set your kind of big picture vision for the organisation and go, this is where I want to get. And then we'll talk to an end user and they go, but I really struggle with this one specific thing. Actually, if you change that, they can have more time, they can serve the customer better, and then you're going to get closer to your kind of big picture vision. So all of those things cumulatively add up to big changes.
Yeah, and I guess, a crucial part of it, is once you've kind of identified all these different areas, is like, how do you quantify those in terms of inefficiency, in terms of opportunities that would be gained, because these are all the key bits that then feed into that overall business case that give you that nice ROI figure at the end, and also help you prioritize as well, actually what's the impact of fixing this bit here versus that bit there, to understand, where should we start first?
From a practical perspective, I guess for us that's about going into the detail there. So that's where it gets interesting. So we'll capture all of that quantitative information. So how much time is this person spending on this process? How much time could we save, or how much time is being wasted here? If we were to change this process, would that enable revenue growth through more sales? Would it reduce costs through efficiency? Would we be able to sell new and different products and services, and therefore grow and expand the proposition? Have we got risk that we can take away? So we go through each of those kind of value drivers and actually put some real numbers against them, because until you do that level of analysis, your business case is kind of guesswork. So we've got to actually get some kind of hard numbers and facts in there to then start to look at what's the return on investment going to be, because that will all feed into it. We can align that to the vision and say, we want to get from here to here in terms of profit or revenue or whatever. But we need to know actually we've got some quantifiable facts that can go into a business case to support that.
And it's amazing as well, you're talking to different functions of a business, how they've all quite often got similar pains. So I know data, I think every project we've worked on, data's come up as being a real headache for every department. And then you can know, well, actually that's a common theme across the whole business as well as the board. Makes sense to tackle that first.
Often, I guess, as well, when we're talking to lots of different departments within the business, in acquisitive businesses or PE-backed businesses, we're also talking to similar departments, but in different divisions or different acquired businesses. So we'll look at a target operating model overall and say, actually, is there an opportunity to create efficiency by consolidating teams, so maybe centralising a marketing function or a finance function, or actually, do we need regional sales capability so we can serve the customers where they're at, or regional engineering capability, those kinds of things. So that what's the operating model now, and what do we want to get to in terms of a target operating model is an important bit of what we do as well. And again, it's an exercise like this is an opportunity to take stock there and make some of those decisions.
It definitely throws up business decisions that need to be made and kind of sorted out before they even get to the technology part as well.
And that's probably highlights then the importance of having the right people in that process that can make those decisions as well, because we can go away and present a lovely business case, but without the right level of sponsorship and the right level of decision making in there, you're not actually going to affect any change. So we need to make sure we're working with the right people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've covered a lot of ground there. Clearly there's a lot of work to do to put together a solid business case. So in terms of getting all of the relevant background, speaking to all the right people internally and externally, then for us bringing that all together is I guess where the hard work comes in, right? So we put a report together, we'll put a costed business case together, and there we're looking at all of those value drivers that we've uncovered, whether that's from the operating model, whether it's from increasing efficiency, reducing risk, all of that stuff, and we can take that and turn it into a business case. So we've got our savings in there, and then we can overlay that with costs. So what we'll learn from that process is what a roadmap to actually deliver that change looks like. So what's going to work for the business? Where are the areas where we can quickly deliver value, so we can tackle a simple problem and tackle it early and get value. So from that we can put together a roadmap, and then we know what the costs look like from an implementation standpoint, and then we can overlay that with what does the license landscape need to look like. So we need to think about who's going to be using what type of license and how that's going to change over time. So as different departments maybe migrate from a legacy solution into the cloud, how does that change the license estate, and how do we map that out over time?
It might be worth just talking about the value map in terms of importance versus
difficulty and importance.
Difficulty and importance, isn't it? Because actually, this is where we can get the key stakeholders to agree. Right, where do we think the biggest impact is going to be to the business? Make sure they're all aligned.
That needs to be a collaborative exercise, right? So what we think is difficult might be different from what the customer believes is difficult, because there's factors that we're not aware of internally. So working together to put that difficulty and importance matrix together means we can align the roadmap to those areas where there's a high impact, but it's an easy thing to deliver, and we can pull that forward in terms of the roadmap. Yeah,
absolutely. And then I guess from we can offer our expertise in terms of, right, well, you need this bit of technology in place first before you can do that. So you've kind of got the impact of the change on the organisation from the organisation's perspective versus how much effort it would take from our perspective. How aligned is what they want to do out of the box features of the technology, for example, versus something that we're going to have to develop a bit further.
So interesting. Then technology is the last thing we talked about, right? So how do we take all of that and align it to the technology stack? And I guess that's the final piece of the puzzle in terms of building that business case and having something that you can then take to the board as a complete picture. So you've got your roadmap, you've got your kind of numbers in there and your ROI, and you've got some technology recommendations as to how you're going to achieve that.
And then I guess once we've got the business case, it's been signed off, at that point then we can come to the technology, we can do tailored demonstrations knowing the key scenarios that we can transform, and again that's another important step, I guess, in the change management journey, where users actually start getting their hands on the technology and see it come to life.
Get everyone to buy in and move on to the next stage. Thanks for joining me, Emma, and thanks everyone for watching.